including the podium microphone. And this is the microphone on the far right. Are we doing okay up there, Caleb? So far? Thumbs up? I can't hear you, so, okay.
All right, test, test. Is this good? Test, test.
This is the
Test,
far
test.
right.
Test, test. How close do I need to be? Right here.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, testing, 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 testing.
Do I mess it up if I shut it off? Okay.
That is a separate system that
Morning.
this mixer here.
Test 1, 2.
Yep, let me know. Ooh, I don't have to be that close, do I?
Testing. You're not hearing anything, are you? I think it's better than nothing, but
Test, test. Test, test. Okay, this one isn't working now.
this one that we're talking about, but this is maybe the question.
I don't know if this is using them all or not.
Well, and there's something here. There's something here for the mics too.
Test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
I think that's the only one I think is live. And I think
Test 1, 2.
I think that's the podium mic. Would you talk on that, Nancy? Would you talk on that one?
Talking this way? Yes.
No, that's not it.
This one.
Does that say 658 what?
Test 1, 2.
Yep, it's just a little switch.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's it.
Testing 1, 2.
Yeah, this is it. That's
But that one mic just is quiet.
No, I think we got it. I bumped it as well.
Oh, good.
Testing 1, 2, 3. It's better anyway.
Oh, yeah, no. I think we're comfortable. Are you with Jer or are you with? Oh, okay.
I'm Basil, by the way.
Hi, Basil. I'm Nancy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Did we meet you last week?
Probably.
Yeah.
Well,
It's been a long week.
It has.
you
Yeah.
can't get nasty to someone who is
Let me know if you
Giving
guys
you
need
free-
anything.
giving you free
Yeah.
stuff.
I understand completely. Okay, I'm gonna shut this one off for now. One, just to remind you that there are cards in the entry to write your questions on. Please remember to write legibly, include bill numbers if possible. And if you don't know the bill number, there's a league member in the entryway who can help you look it up. And remember to phrase questions so that all legislators can answer. And we will not be reading questions addressed to individual legislators. Please remember to address issues that the state legislature is working on, not local or federal issues. And when you're done with writing your questions, you can hold them up and someone will come around and pick them up. Thank you. We will start at 10 o'clock. Good morning. There are cards in the entryway to write your questions on, and please remember to write legibly. Include bill numbers if possible. If you don't know the bill number, there is a league member in the entryway who can help you look it up. And please remember to phrase the questions so that all legislators can answer. We will not be reading questions addressed to individual legislators. Please remember to address issues that the state legislature is working on, not local or federal issues. And you can hold your hand up with the question card when you're done writing it, and one of our volunteers will pick it up. I ask that the legislators come forward, and we will get going in about 7 minutes. Thank you. Bottom, when it's red, it's on. Just to let you know, we have a legislator running late, so we're going to start just a few minutes late, but we're not going to wait too long. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get going. Everyone could grab their seats. All right, we will have a legislator or two coming in late, so please forgive them with that. But good morning. My name is Amy Scott Stoltz, and I'm with the Sioux Falls League of Women Voters. I'll be your moderator this morning. We do have sign language interpreters today. We have Philip and Julie with interpreter services. Thank you for being here. This is the second legislative coffee the Sioux Falls League of Women Voters has hosted during this 100th legislative session in 2025. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and we influence public policy through education and advocacy. The Sioux Falls League greatly appreciates your patience this year as we have adjusted our legislative coffee schedule due to the timing of the swearing in and inauguration for Governor Larry Roden. In response to the change in schedule, the Sioux Falls League President Julie Game had made additional contacts with legislators to let them know that they could choose to attend either of the rescheduled coffees, either last week or the one today. The legislative coffees are being live streamed both on the Sioux Falls League of Women Voters Facebook page and our YouTube channel. A special thank you today to our sponsors and partners in this endeavor: AARP of South Dakota, Change Agents of South Dakota, JARE Events, Sioux Falls Education Association, the Sioux Falls Trades and Labor Assembly, the South Dakota Federation of Labor, and Southeast Technical College. Audience, there are cards available for you to write your questions on. Please remember to write legibly. Include bill numbers if possible, and if you don't know the bill number, there's a league member in the entryway who can help you look it up. Remember to phrase the questions so that all legislators can answer, as we will not be reading questions addressed to individual legislators. Please remember to address issues that the state legislature is working on, not local or federal issues. And you can hold your card up when you're done writing the question, and one of our volunteers will pick them up. And please understand that I may combine questions on a similar topic. If your question is not asked today, please feel free to stay after the event to speak with legislators individually or contact your legislators after the event. We'd ask at this time that you please silence your cell phones, and also ask that you take any conversations out in the entryway so as not to disrupt the others who are listening. We also remind the audience to refrain from any actions that would potentially disrupt or delay the questions and responses. This includes, but isn't limited to, applause, hand gestures, or raising signs. Now, there are 2 weeks left in the main run of this legislative session. This past week, we had the crossover deadline for bills or joint resolutions to pass from their house of origin. The week ahead will be very busy as well. Monday, March 3rd is the last day for the House of Origin to pass any special appropriations bills referred by Joint Committee on Appropriations. Thursday, March 6th is the final day to move a bill or joint resolution from committee. Some committees will be winding down during this week, but others will be scheduling extra meetings in order to hold hearings on all of their assigned bills and joint resolutions. The final week of the main run of the legislative session is March 10th through 13th. Monday, March 10th is the last day for a bill or joint resolution to pass both houses. The remaining 3 days are reserved for conference committees that meet to resolve the differences from bills that were amended in the second house. This last week is also when the Joint Committee on Appropriations will work through the process to amend the recommended budget as submitted by former Governor Noem. So as you can see, there's still much to be done. Our gratitude to the legislators who are prioritized being here today to answer questions and to be accountable to the voters. They have careers and family obligations that they set aside to be with us today, so we thank you. Today we have legislators from District 10, 12, and hopefully 14 if he shows up. The format is as follows. Each legislator will introduce themselves, indicate the committees on which they serve, how long they've served in the legislature, and their top priorities for this session. Legislators will then have 90 seconds to respond to questions. There will be no rebuttal time. Legislators, if you wish to respond to a question, please raise your hand or get my attention, and I'll call on you when it's your turn. As we near the end of our coffee today, each legislator will have an opportunity for 90-second closing statement to comment further on issues brought up or to comment on a topic that was not covered by the questions. Legislators, the timers, right here, they're located in the front of the room and they have signs to let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. Thank you for following the time limits, and if you should go over the time, I will let you know. And I tell you what, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and hop over on this side. It will help everybody to be on one side. It'll help our interpreters and our camera people as well. And if Representative Kaiser shows up, we can certainly have him join on the end as well. So we will start our introductions right here with Senator Larson. Okay.
Morning, everyone. It's nice to see friendly faces and a lot of new faces as well. My name is Liz Larson, and I'm the minority leader in the Senate. I'm from District 10. I am from Sioux Falls originally, and my background is in economic development. I'm a mom. I'm a wife of a correctional officer. I am a gardener. I am a hunter and fisher woman, and I've been in the Senate for about 3 years now. I'm just starting on my second term. You know, along with the Democratic caucus, our priorities are to really protect public education and watch out for lowering costs for South Dakotans and protect freedom as well. We have our own definition of what freedom is, and that kind of differs among who you talk to these days, but those are our priorities. At this point in the session, my brain turns a little bit to mush because I've looked at about 500 different bills so far, so I'm just really looking forward to your questions. I am on Commerce and Energy, I'm on State Affairs, and I'm on Transportation, and those are the three committees that I'm on. That's all I got for you. Sorry.
Wonderful. Representative Healy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. These are such great events to get everybody out and answer all of your questions. So truly appreciate seeing you all here today. I am also from District 10, serve as minority leader in the House. I serve on legislative rules and procedure, so we set the rules for the year at the very beginning of the year, and also state affairs. I don't get to serve on any other because of the number of Democrats that we have in the House. My main priority this year is childcare. As you are all probably aware, it is a very hard industry. Right now, they're having a really hard time. We have issues with access for people who need to send their kids to daycare. We have issues with affordability, both for families and for childcare facilities. And we also just have to work on the workforce, the workforce behind the workforce. I also am a mom. You'll see my baby up here running around, toddling around. He's eating veggie straws right now with my husband. I also have 2 stepkids. They stayed home today. Harrison, he is in 8th grade, and Pearl, she is in 6th. So thanks for being here today. Can't wait for all the questions.
Thank you. Representative Jameson.
Hi, thank you. And yes, Greg Jamison, District 12. District 12 is kind of the southwest part of Sioux Falls. This is my 4th session, just not consecutive. I serve on local government as the chair and state affairs. I'm also a majority whip. And so I'm happy to represent the Republican Party here. I feel a little outnumbered, but in Pierre, it's really substantially different. And the majority has control over a lot of the issues and topics that we discuss. And some of them go too far, some of them are just right. But I am a part of that group, and I did serve 8 years on the Sioux Falls City Council. This is a tremendous privilege to be in Pierre and to represent people across the state and tackle tough topics. Some of my key priorities were property taxes and adjusting them or doing something, raising the education and awareness about the issue and how it impacts everybody and what we can do as legislators to change that. I tell you, I'm excited to hear some of your questions. I feel like I'm probably the odd duck in the room, and I feel like perhaps I'm getting called to the carpet, but that's okay. I've had to do it for many years. I'm probably not your fan favorite here, but I intend to be honest and straightforward with you and to tell you the good, bad, and the ugly of what we've done and what we intend to do, and hopefully have a good conversation. Thank you.
All right. Okay. We're going to start with our first question on SDPB. There's multiple questions. I'll read a few of them. Will the funding for SDPB be restored in the budget? Why are you reducing funding for PBS? It's a window on the arts, good children's programming, and a window on the world for all South Dakota citizens. It says, why would you decrease support for SDPB? Who would like to start with that one? Senator Larson.
Well, personally, I don't think we will. I could probably speak for all of us by saying that it probably won't happen. I will say that I've never gotten more emails about an issue before session even started than South Dakota Public Broadcasting cuts. I certainly don't support them. Our caucus doesn't support them, and we're doing everything we can to try and minimize or erase those. I agree with the question. South Dakota Public Broadcasting has been, I mean, if you grew up here, it's a part of how you grew up. You watched it as a kid, and it is such an important part of how we get our news, how we get our information, and learning as well. So I plan on supporting it all the way, and we've got an overwhelming outpouring of people who also agree with that.
I don't
Representative Healy.
I don't think I need to add much to that. I completely agree with Senator Larson. But what I will add is SDPB has so many more services than I think any of us are aware of. So not only do they provide really good programming and news and media stories, but they also are a really good service for rural South Dakota when it comes to our weather alerts, when it comes to someone missing, and I believe an Amber Alert. So there are a lot of services that are incredibly important to this state that SDPB is the sole service provider for. So that is another huge reason that we need to keep them fully funded.
Okay. And Representative James.
Thank you. I think the start of the question perhaps was why, and I believe it was in Governor Noem's budget, recommended budget, cutting the funding. And I don't know why, maybe, well, maybe I do. I think she had some philosophical differences in what topics were getting covered and covered and all that, and as well perhaps funding from the funding formula that is used in our state compared to other states. And so I think she wanted to do some things, and now we carried that into the new governor, and he wanted to carry that ball again. And it's been pretty well clear that the legislative body is intending to restore the funding. So I just think it was a matter of probably some axes to grind, and we've changed the topic. And I think everybody saw the value and the services that were provided, so I think we're going to be okay.
Thank you. Our next topic here is on House Joint Resolution 5001 on Medicaid expansion. A couple questions here ask, are you really willing to take Medicaid away from our lowest income workers and caretakers? And this one says this bill, or excuse me, this resolution will, if passed by the voters, deprive many persons who are unstable and cannot sustain employment if the assistance with the assistance they need. The voters are typically unaware of the instability issue. Who would like to tackle House Joint Resolution 5001? Representative Hughes.
Thank you. I voted no on this House Joint Resolution. Medicaid expansion, it's not just a health policy. It's a lifeline for individuals. It's a lifeline for families and hospitals and communities across our state. Medical debt leads to bankruptcy in the United States. In South Dakota, we know that that's no exception. So we know that it helps families avoid the impossible decision between paying medical treatment and covering basic needs like food and housing and utilities. It's a peace of mind knowing that medical emergencies won't upend your financial stability. It's also incredibly important to have Medicaid expansion because of our hospital systems. So rural hospitals and our hospitals right here in Sioux Falls, they're the backbone of many communities. They provide jobs, they keep us economically stable, and they actually operate on razor-thin margins. You wouldn't really know that, but they do. So even a small increase in uncompensated care can lead to closure. So it's incredibly important that we keep Medicaid expansion here in South Dakota. I truly worry that if we ever see any amount of federal assistance decrease, that we are going to see this as an issue in our legislature, and that really worries me.
Thank you. Senator Larson?
And I'll just quickly add to that, property tax was also a big issue that, affects a lot of people in my district, and we've been looking at, and we talk about how people shouldn't be taxed out of their homes, and that's very true. People also shouldn't be one medical emergency away from being either homeless or bankrupt. So I view those things as going hand in hand. So everything Aaron said, plus that.
Representative Jameson?
Ta-da! So I get to be the guy, but the real question will be put to the voters, and I wish I had a better explanation of maybe some of the intricacies of it, but at the end of the day, the voters will decide. The voters decided last time, and what they did is, and I was out there, I was on the side of expanding Medicaid, totally against all my Republican buddies. I was out on a ledge. And thankfully, you guys voted yes. Imagine how I would have been if I'd have been on that ledge and pushing for it, only to find out the voters didn't want it. I'd have been probably not here. But to me, it was more important than that. And this piece is intended to kind of say, okay, you did that. You just want to make sure we have some corrections. If the federal government changes, we don't get also hung out on a limb for funding it. So I think you'll have another shot at this, and you guys will answer the question as you believe, and I'll support that completely.
Our next topic here is on House Bill 1132 on child care. The question asks, Many persons working at child care facilities cannot afford to pay for child care of their own children. House Bill 1132 would assist such persons if they qualify. Do you support?
I'll start.
Representative Healy.
I fully support that bill because I'm the prime sponsor of it, and I'm happy to say that every person up here also voted yes for it, or will vote yes for it. So that is a bill that basically takes child care assistance and normal child care assistance. You are eligible at the 209% federal poverty level. This ups that to 300% for child care workers exclusively. And the reason why is for what Amy said, because child care workers cannot afford their own child care, and they are leaving the industry because they cannot afford to have their children in daycare. And so it's very important that as we look at the workforce, knowing that workforce is such a huge problem in child care, that we work towards incentivizing them back into the system by giving them a small little bit of assistance when it comes to their own children.
Senator Larson?
Yeah, just a little add-on to that. We've been saying that childcare is in a crisis state ever since I've been elected to the legislature, and no one has managed to do anything about it, even in a small way, until this. So thank you to Aaron Healy.
Oh, no applause. No applause. Representative Jameson, do you want to speak on that?
If I could just add a me too. I mean, like you said, like Aaron said, there's only 8 House members who voted against it. And there's some individuals in the House who won't vote for any kind of assistance like this. Any spending issues, any fee increases, just absolutely will vote no, no matter what. And so she had very good support in the House. It's an unusual kind of win, I would call it, versed on the majorities. And so she did a fine job. Nothing else to add but me too.
Our next topic, can you look up SB 83 for me? Things are moving fast in Pierre. I think this one may already be done. That's the ingestion. Is that already done?
You just voted on it Friday.
It was just done on Friday. Does anyone want to talk on the ingestion law, SB 83? And that passed, I believe, correct? It did, okay.
Okay, I'm so excited about this bill. So we are the very last state in the nation to pass legislation like this. So what this bill does is lower the penalty for ingesting any drug from a felony to a misdemeanor. That's incredibly important because the first 2 offenses, you're going to be basically evaluated to see if you have any substance abuse issues, and you're going to get the help that you need, but you're not going to be felonized and you're not going to be thrown into prison. That is so incredibly important as we're sitting here having conversations about a new prison and how we are throwing people into prison who don't need to be behind closed walls. What they truly need is help, mental health help or substance abuse help, and that is what Senate Bill 83 does. It gives the help to the people who need it, and I couldn't be so more proud than our legislature, both the Senate and the House passing it. Please, please get a hold of the governor's office and make sure that he signs it into law, because this is the first thing that we can do as a legislature to start chipping away at felonies that don't need to be there.
Thank you. Senator Larson?
And just when we compare our incarceration rates to some of our neighboring states, this is another piece of that puzzle that we can just chip away at reducing those and getting people out of that vicious cycle of going to jail and then getting more and more, getting into that vicious cycle. So it's really, really a great win for I would say for all of our legislature.
Representative Jameson?
Thank you. Yeah, just as a reference, it did pass 37 to 33. So it wasn't like Aaron's last bill. It was a kind of a dividing line in the body, and the intent is there's a harshness or a tough on crime, no tolerance for that kind of activity. That was the mentality. Law enforcement and Attorney General's office was advocating to not pass it, and others were saying, let's let's do something different, for goodness sakes. It isn't working, hasn't worked. We've kept it this way. We're the only one, as was mentioned, the only state doing it. For goodness sakes, let's try something else. And this, as was mentioned, the topic of the prison. You know, we're overcrowded there, so do we need to build more prisons so we can, you know, just keep feeding this? And I think what's great is the body said, as still just a slim majority, the body still said, let's try something different. And that's really hopeful, optimistic about change coming. And I was on the voting yay side of this, and but you got to know it's kind of like this, because law enforcement's advocating for it. It's tough to advocate or vote against law enforcement because we're tough on crime, right? So, but still, slim margin. I'm hopeful for a new beginning.
We're going to move on to some questions about the prison as well. I know there's not a current bill there, but I just want to follow up because it's a natural progression here. Some questions say, with the governor announcing Project Prison Reset, what do you want to see done with the new prison? Another one says, is there available land at the current Penn site? Do people think employees from Sioux Falls will be willing to drive to Canton area to work? You're already short employees. The costs of all the infrastructure at the proposed site seems unnecessary if there's a better site. And another asks, why don't you build in stages? Build it next to the existing prison, but to the north. There's existing law enforcement in Minnehaha County that is lacking in Lincoln County. So who would like to address the prison situation? Representative Jameson.
Thank you. I'll start this. Recently the governor did announce the prison reset. In all fairness, he had run it through, the bill had run through the body, and the body said no. Put the brakes on. It isn't, for a lot of different reasons. I could tell you the body is very fractured on this topic about the size, the location, the amount of money. Why aren't we investing more in prevention and or rehabilitation? Why are we just building walls? And so I think that the topic and the whole discussion is going to reset and become focused on more of those issues and not just building a prison. So I think it's very refreshing, very good. The site, caused a lot of stir and is never, ever going to work for anybody in their backyard, whoever it is. Could be you, could be us, could be somebody else who isn't in this room. Somebody's not going to appreciate it, and that's just kind of the bad part of it. The other is that, the cost is escalating, as anything would. And so do we need the prison? Is there overcrowding? Absolutely. If you haven't had a chance, you probably don't have a way to tour the current prison, but that's an eye-opener, the fact that we need one. And then it turns into where? There isn't enough land space to build a new prison at the existing place, so there just has to be another location. And I'm a part of this task force group. Aaron is too, and I'm interested to be a part of that. So a lot of new stuff to come.
Thank you. Representative Healy.
Yeah, so the task force will answer 3 questions. Do we need a new prison? How big should it be? And where should it be? So we no longer are looking at the Canton plan. Maybe that is what we will end up doing after the task force meets with our whole group. That will include behavioral specialists, sheriffs, judges, people who really truly understand this topic. We're all going to be included. We're all going to be involved. I'm assuming we're going to get a tour of the prison again. I had the chance with our current governor to go tour that back in December with Senator Larson, and we need a new prison. I'm not going to be the first person that thinks we need a prison, but after seeing that, we need a new prison. It's an inhumane place for those folks to be. And one of my main priorities, we've talked a lot about rehabilitation in the legislature. And when it comes to this prison, my main focus is rehabilitation. So I know I mentioned earlier, we want to try and avoid incarceration in the first place. We want to make sure that people can get the help they need before they're in prison. But once they're in prison, how can we get them the tools they need to succeed once they enter society? That's education, job training, substance abuse help, and mental health help. So I'm looking forward to serving on that and bringing that voice to the task force.
Thank you. Senator Larson, did you want to speak on that? No, okay. We will move then from prisons to the libraries. House Bill 1239. We have a few questions on that. Why does the legislature think this bill is worthy of enacting into law? What is the actual problem it's addressing when school districts and public libraries already have policies in place to challenge books? Another asks if opposition to this is interested in ensuring children have unfettered access to sexual content. Another asks what counts as harmful or obscene material, what topics would be covered. Who wants to take on 1239?
Well,
Senator Larson.
I actually haven't heard this bill yet. I've just heard about it. It hasn't come before me, but there's a lot of these bills across the country. There's one in Idaho right now in which folks are trying to, streamline the process where members of the public can protest about a certain book, and then it will go into a different area of the library that's like locked off from children. And there is one library in Idaho, I was just watching this on the news, that actually just closed their door and said, we're just 18 and over, the entire library, and then there's a huge lawsuit and a bunch of libraries are doing this. So, I mean, it's kind of a theme that's going across the country. Librarians are not criminals. We need a way to make sure that children are not exposed to pornography, of course, but most librarians that you talk to don't actually believe that they are being exposed, that they're exposing children to pornography. A lot of the publishing houses that are involved in the lawsuits about this are very, very clear that they, like Penguin, they're like, we are not in the pornography business. That's actually not what we do. So some of these are virtue signaling, extreme kinds of activities, and I don't support them, so.
Okay, who else would like to speak? Representative Healy?
I fully agree with Senator Larson. I think the one thing that I'll add is one thing that we continue to see in our legislature is just chipping away at professional folks, and this is just another one. My stepmother was a state librarian. She's retired now, and she also worked in this Sioux Falls City Library for a number of years too. And they know what they do. They do a good job. They provide a lot of services. They help a lot of people, and it's not just renting out, borrowing books. They're professionals in their field, and they went to school for that. And I am just tired of seeing us chip away at their profession, and we see it in a lot of different fields, and this is the one that's been chosen this year. So I voted no on this. I think families should be able to choose what kind of content their children is reading or viewing, and that should be left to parental control.
Okay. Representative Jameson.
I don't know if I have all the defense mechanisms to justify my vote on this bill. The intent, I voted for the bill, and the intent is to remove the affirmative defense for essentially librarians and others who maintain these books. And the idea that material that is found to be in these books, potentially inadvertently or somehow got there, that those individuals are not held accountable for what's in the book. And what we've learned is that there's a lot of things in libraries that are offensive and can be found by minors. And that's not good. And so the effort behind it is to make somebody accountable, and that was the hope. And I don't know if it'll pass through and get through the other side, but that's the message that's getting sent, is that somebody has to be accountable for this material, and we just can't let some people off the hook just as that affirmative defense piece. So it did pass the House, right, and it goes over the Senate, and may find a different outcome there, but that was the intent behind it.
Okay, we're going to move on to House Bill 1171 and 1172. I don't have a topic on those. If someone could pull that up. The question asks, would this curriculum be based on scientific, peer-reviewed research? Would this curriculum include information on safe sex, not only for heterosexual sex, but also homosexual sex, and the importance of being regularly tested for STIs? Again, it's House Bill 1171 and 1172. Representative Healy.
I can take this just because I know what happened to these two bills. So these two bills were basically requiring that a school curriculum include human growth and development within the health curriculum. And then 1172 required that a high school health curriculum include human sexuality and human development within the room. Both of these bills were tabled. So basically what that means is there's no debate over it. They're just going to vote on it. And usually what that means is it's going to die a hard death. So that's what happened to these two bills. Basically, I think if I'm not on the House Education Committee anymore, but what I think happened was they just didn't see the need for this legislation, and they just hard killed it right away, which is great because I wouldn't have supported this anyway.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk on that one? Okay. Move on to Senate Bill 216 on taxes. As you study property taxes, specifically Senate Bill 216, why is new growth being removed from counties and school districts' capital funding? Will the state supplement the infrastructure growth needs in this region after removing the local funding mechanism? So again, it's Senate Bill 216. Senator Larson?
I think between the three of us, we can probably answer different parts of that question. But, 216 and our whole tax structure is quite complicated. And it's kind of compared to whack-a-mole. If you reduce down here, then something pops up for somebody else. So 216 basically looks at the cost of single-family dwellings, and how they will increase the property taxes from 2027 to 2031, I believe, and it puts a cap on that. So it's saying in the future we're going to limit growth in this area, and yes, those revenues will need to be replaced somewhere else, and we don't necessarily talk about that at this time, but. Property tax is a huge issue, and when you go door to door, at least in our areas, we do believe that people should not be taxed out of their homes, and that is a problem that we need to address. I think out of all the bills that we've seen so far, this is probably the most reasonable one. I voted for it. I anticipate it will pass and be fine, but that's my general approach to that. I don't think it's perfect. It does not. It is a property tax bill. It does not address people who are renting. It does not address food tax or any of the other tax issues that are appropriate. We do have that one topic limitation. So for a property tax bill, it is fine. I'm getting told to stop, sorry. That's.
Darn timers. Who else would like to take this one on?
I'll take one small shot at it. Okay, so what I will add is the part of the bill that I do like is the freeze that it puts on single-family dwellings. So if you make less than $55,000 if you're in a single-member household, or $65,000 for a multiple-member household, and then if you also if your house is under I think it's 500,000, then they will put a freeze on that assessment, which I think is a good thing for low-income families. So that's what I'll add to that bill.
Okay. Representative Jameson.
I'll just try to add a couple things. We haven't voted it yet on it on the House side. The Senate passed it. There's today I think there's 3 property tax reductions or property tax bills, directed bills left alive. Started off with many more. I have one that's going over to the Senate this week and is different than this one. This is the governor's bill, if you will, that he put together a group of people, to legislators, to address the issue. And the first part of the question, I believe, was regarding the growth indexing. But the intent is the housing, the single-family homes, there's been a huge increase in values and the assessment rates have gone up. And so then you have what appears to be the tax rate go up. And the mill levies are collecting a lot of money for schools, counties, and the city. And the intent is to try to do some adjustments so that they give a 5-year time period for the housing market maybe to settle down. I can just kind of tell you what's going to happen when this gets voted on in the House side is that there's going to be a lot of resistance to that. The House that I'm a part of, at least, isn't interested in changing things or shifting taxes to any other part of the people who are paying. So,
Okay, that's your time. Thank you. Another kind of similar piece, but different. This one has to do with in the budget. This one says, I'd love to have a tax incentive for homeschool and school choice alternatives rather than asking for ESAs. It says this is in the budget. Would you like to talk on school choice and the alternatives?
If I understand correctly, there are currently no school voucher or school ESA bills still alive, if I'm right. So we have all voted that down pretty bipartisan this year. From our perspective, we don't believe that public dollars should go into private schools or for private educational purposes. It needs to stay in the public school, and we've been already kind of, working against the, purchasing power that the schools have over the past 20 years since I was at Lincoln High School. Oh, wait, it was a little bit longer than that, but I'm not going to tell you. So, we can't take away from that, and that's been our general perspective.
Okay, Representative Jameson?
Just as a refresher, the former Governor Noem had proposed this in her budget address to allocate, I think it was $3 million, and it was kind of a pilot program, a START program. And it failed, miserably, I suppose. But I think what the governor then was after was some kind of a or acknowledgement that there's a lot of people in our state who are not happy about what's happening in the public school system, and they want a different option. The trouble comes, as was discussed here, was that there's, our budget is already slim. Half of all the dollars we collect for our in sales tax revenues go to fund education in some way. And so to add an additional burden, if you will, or additional cost to the state to fund another private, if you will, program, it's like exhausting. We just can't. But I think the governor then was trying to acknowledge that there's something has to change. And I think that message got delivered, and could we do better in education, public education? Probably. And so, but I think that was the shot across the bow to education was, look, if you guys aren't doing it, we're going to do something different. But the legislative body has decided to stay with our current system.
All right. We'll move on to the State Library, House Bill 1045. What effects will defunding the State Library have on rural and school libraries? And the other one just asks if you support or oppose. House Bill 1045 on the State Library. Representative Healy.
I just know so much about the state library since my stepmom was a state librarian. So the state library provides a lot of good resources to schools and to communities. And one good example is just the electronic library. So when you have a tablet or if you want to read a book on your phone, that's coming directly from the state library. There's a lot of services that are offered by the state library. I'm not going to sit here and list them all out because my mind is just not thinking about those right now. But it's important that we keep it funded. I think we're going to. I do think we are going to. There is a bill out there, and I wish I could remember the number. I can't. But it is basically going to chip away at the state library and that budget. And I think it's an $800,000 difference. My hope is, I believe on Monday, we get to vote on that and we get to kill that, because by killing that that bill will fully fund the state library. So fingers crossed that we kill that bill on Monday.
Got to say it in the microphone, Senator Larson.
Ditto.
Thank you. Representative Jameson.
Yeah, I think the beginning part of your question was what impact would it have, and I think what we've learned is that it would be substantial, and so if I understand, well, I kind of do, I suppose I should say, the funding will be restored, so it's not going to go away.
All right, we'll move on then to Senate Bill 100 that involves guns on campus. A few questions on this. Senate Bill 100 limits restrictions on carrying concealed guns. Is it supported by the Board of Regents is one question. Is it supported by campus security? Is it reasonable to assume anyone carrying weapons on campus is mature and responsible? Another question asks, are we considering how much this will cost the schools while education funding may also be cut? Who wants to take on Senate Bill 100? Senator Larson.
No, 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 and no. That's my answer to that one. Senate Bill 100 would basically require that the Board of Regents institutions not restrict guns in pretty much any way, although there were some changes made towards the end. And, right now, we leave it to the Board of Regents to decide if they want to have, gun-free areas of their campus, if they want to allow guns in dormitories. There are certain areas of campuses that are, labs that you have to scrub down and not even bring a cell phone in there. It's a very granular kind of area, but some people feel that it is threatening their Second Amendment rights to carry a gun all the time. I don't personally feel like that. I voted against it. I spoke out against it. I think we can have the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner. We can have the Second Amendment but also let institutions like the Board of Regents decide where in their small areas they would like to allow those based on their circumstances. And they should know best. And like you said, the Board of Regents did not support it. The local police and the local sheriff's association didn't support it. So I didn't support it either.
Representative Healy?
Yeah, I just pulled up the minutes from that meeting. So the Board of Regents didn't support it. A few presidents from universities from South Dakota did not support it. And then a number of student affairs presidents or vice presidents showed up to not support it, as well as the South Dakota Police Chiefs Association. So a lot of people don't support this legislation. I myself, and when I don't respond to an email, because I know I have a lot of emails to respond to, but when bills like this come to the legislature, the number of emails I receive is incredible, and it buries all of my real emails. So the number of form emails I got on Senate Bill 100 from, I'm assuming, students of universities is outrageous and should tell you everything you need to know about this bill. Students don't want it, and I wouldn't support it even if I didn't get those emails, but I will not be supporting it when we see it in State Affairs.
Okay, Representative Jameson.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I haven't seen the bill yet because it hasn't come to the House side. Aaron and I are on State Affairs together, and is it in State Affairs Monday afternoon? Yeah, so it'll be coming to our committee. So I haven't heard the debate, but we did have another bill that was similar in nature regarding a provision to restrict municipalities and counties from prohibiting the employees from carrying a gun. And that passed through the House. And I just have to tell you, based on what I'm seeing in this bill, look for it to pass through the House. It seems kind of, maybe not intuitive when there's all kinds of others who are opposed, but there's a central theme here about your Second Amendment right. And if you are voting in favor of enhancing your Second Amendment right as a Republican, that's like red meat to them. And so to vote against it and or to somehow be seen as voting against your Second Amendment rights, all of a sudden it's all against you. So good, bad, or indifferent on whether it's right or good, and the law enforcement's opposed, it almost is different. It's a different topic for these guys to decide. So don't be surprised if it passes. I haven't seen it yet. We'll hear it. I would suspect it gets through State Affairs, in all fairness, right? Right. And so then it gets to the House floor where it's even
your time.
a majority.
Thank you. We'll move on to House Bill 1259, otherwise known as the bathroom bill. How do you plan to vote on 1259 when it comes to the floor? And another question asks, who would monitor public restrooms? Has a harm or need for restriction ever been observed or documented? This is House Bill 1259. Representative Jameson? You want-
Yeah, I'll be the one that gets stepped on here. And, we had two bills come, one regarding your birth certificate and driver's license, changing your gender identification, and this one. And I know the body struggled with this. This did already come through the House, and the same kind of questions. Who's going to be the bathroom monitor? It appeared as though there was really only maybe a couple places in our state where this is potentially a problem and that they're trying to deal with. And so I can tell you just behind the scenes and with the other legislators, the real question was, how are we and/or are we protecting our women and girls in bathrooms? That was the question we wanted to figure out. And there was this intense discussion about, this is somewhat ridiculous, okay? I mean, it was honest. But at the end of the day, there was a lot of us who felt like, well, we should do something, a little more than just let it go. And so that's where we fell, and it's silliness to me, but that's where I think a lot of the legislators fell, was just protecting women.
Representative Healy?
I was a really strong no on this bill, and I'll always be a really strong no on any anti-trans legislation. And what this bill does is just harm trans individuals. It is a bill to call out people and to make them feel like they do not deserve to go to the bathroom in the bathroom where with the gender that they reflect. And to me, that is really, really wrong and really sad. And I actually got emotional on the House floor because of it. And what really upset me about 1259 is when I asked the prime sponsor, how will trans inmates, if we have any trans inmates, how will they use a restroom? Because they cannot have a floor-to-ceiling restroom with a lock on it. They can't have a lock on their bathroom. And her answer was solitary confinement. Okay? Her answer was solitary confinement. How terrible is that, you guys? Come on. This is so terrible. We cannot be treating trans individuals this way. They deserve compassion. They deserve human dignity. And I just am disgusted by this bill. Proudly wearing a trans Protect Trans Kids bracelet today that was given to me right before this. I will always stand up and fight for you guys. I will always try to give you the compassion and the dignity that you all deserve.
Senator Larson? No applause. No applause.
And I would just echo what Aaron said. When I go door to door in my district, even if I was myself anti-trans, which I'm not, you can't ignore the rainbow flags that I see in my district. I mean, I would be directly voting against my constituents if I were to oppose this. I recognize the validity of some of the questions, and people, I think we should move towards having some more unisex options that are more widely available. That's fair. But we don't need to single out a certain, group of people who have, the suicide rates among trans youth are just appalling. And I just think we could have a more humanitarian way to go about this conversation rather than, singling out a group of people. Thank you.
Okay, the next is on House Bill 1177. If someone can pull that up. I don't have that handy on what the topic is, but it's similar. It says, are you aware of the negative effect suppressing exploration of self has on middle and high schoolers? What purpose does this bill serve other than to out humiliate and degrade transgender and gender diverse students. Can someone tell me what the topic on that is? 1177. Do we have the right bill number on it? Okay.
It's allowing teachers to not call a student by their
Oh, okay, and that has died, hasn't it? Okay. I apologize, that has died, so we will skip that one for now. Great, okay. Here's another budget question. It says, since we receive roughly 56% of our state budget from federal government subsidies, doesn't reducing our state taxes make us more reliant on handouts from other states to provide for basic services to our population? Somebody want, Representative Jameson.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a reckoning coming, I would say, because the federal government is reducing their spending. And South Dakota's been a nanny state, if you will. We don't generate enough sales tax revenues or other revenues to fund ourselves. We rely on the federal government. And they are going to be reducing their spending, their grants, and other funding. They've already started. So it's not a good time to be in the legislature or the governor, frankly, because it is going to be a difficult path forward. And so revenues for everything that we do. So to currently, already half of our budget is spent on education. You have to know that something is going to change, either what we serve, how we serve, or your taxes. Your sales taxes are in jeopardy of going up for sure, because already we have a really low sales tax across broad-based system set up that way. But change is coming. And it's starting from the federal government only because we rely on the federal government so much. We don't have a natural resource like oil or coal or something that we could generate other revenue from unless we could find something new. But the reality is change is coming, and it's not going to be in our favor.
Okay, Senator Larson.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more questions from constituents about, is South Dakota getting doged? Doged has become a verb. And there's a question, you know, the grants that we get from the federal government are certainly going to be impacted. How that exactly plays out in our state budget, it's hard to say, but we have seen a lot of employees also from the USDA, SBA, Forest Service, and those kind of federal agencies get fired. We know that there are gag orders on certain agencies for talking about it. And so I'm really interested to see how this plays out, and definitely things are going to change, and we're getting doged, and what that looks like, we don't know yet, but we should definitely continue paying attention to that.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to Senate Bill 187 on immigration. A couple questions here. One asks, what political subdivisions exactly would be affected by this? Would a school be forced to let ICE into their building or classrooms to remove a student? If a private organization or business is included under a political subdivision because it's in a city, are they required to comply with ICE? Senate Bill 187. Representative Healy.
Yep, this bill was withdrawn, so we never did have to answer those questions. Yay.
All right. Thank you. Then we will move on to eminent domain, House Bill 1052 and 1085 are listed here. The questions ask, get my glasses here, pardon me. What is your view on House Bill 1052, and how do you balance landowner rights with economic progress? Do you think it will pass? Another one asks, CO2 is not a commodity to be used by the public like oil and natural gas. South Dakota Supreme Court ruled on this in March 2024. Therefore, any company that wants to do business in South Dakota and transport CO2 is welcome, but they should not be allowed to use eminent domain to enter private property. So 1052 and 1085. Who would like to talk on that? Senator Larson?
Well, The 1052 I'm aware of, the other one I'm not aware of, and I haven't heard either yet in committee, but I will. You know, if I had to vote today, I would vote yes on 1052, but I wouldn't be that happy about it. And the reason is the second part of the question, which how do you balance landowner rights with economic development? I was sitting next to a corn farmer the other day, and he was saying, you know what, if I don't innovate, my children won't be able to do this. And then you talk to a landowner and they tell you how they were, you know, approached on their land with, you know, all kinds of horrible, you know, ethical breaches. So there are good arguments on both sides of this, and it's become, what I am sad about is that this issue has become its own animal, and it has divided our legislature and taken other issues with it. And that makes me a little bit sad. I don't believe, and anybody who studies public policy will tell you, that best practices in public policy do not include targeting one particular project. There should be other ways to do it. We should be looking at the frameworks of how we approach land ownership and eminent domain, and those are much more sustainable ways to ask the question. That said, I'm probably going to go with my caucus on it, and that's about, it's a kind of it's a difficult issue.
Okay, Representative Healy.
It is a difficult issue. This was one of the hardest votes I've ever had to take in my 7 years in the legislature. So I did vote yes on House Bill 1052. I just don't think that we should be exercising eminent domain for pipelines for private gain. I also believe in economic development, which is why I voted no on House Bill 1085, which basically put a moratorium on the construction of carbon on CO2 pipelines until the final pipeline safety rules have been adopted. And I think that's just bad legislation, because we are setting bad precedent by saying we can't do something, we can't continue building something until final rules have been promulgated. And rules are always being promulgated. So we can't just sit here and say, like, we know when the final rules are going to come about, and they don't even know when these rules are coming. So I don't think that's a good precedent to set in general for any kind of legislation. So hard issue. I believe that there are some good projects that could come out of the pipeline. I think the pipeline itself is, there's some bad actors. That is really unfortunate, because that's why we're here in the first place. But when it comes down to it, is I try to support both. I think we can support landowners and also support economic development.
Representative Jameson.
So 1052, the prohibit the exercise of eminent domain for a pipeline that carries carbon dioxide. The reality is that bill is intended to 100% stop the application that's already in existence. So imagine any of you trying to do a project that encompasses crossing the state and looking for regulatory approval to do that. You'd find yourself struggling if during that application process, after you've applied and spent maybe, I don't know, maybe a lot of money getting ready to start the process, going through the application, checking them off, check, agreeing and or complying with all of those regulations, to have the legislative body during that process change one of those lines that you had to check. Now what are you going to do? It immediately stops your project. So for me, it's a bad precedent for us to start changing the rules in the middle of the application process. Just is. If we get through this, they fail, and it all, and this bill holds because it did pass, then obviously the rules have changed. But for an applicant in the application process, it's ridiculous to change the rules.
All right, well, this has never happened to me before, but we've run out of questions on bills that are still active. So what I'm going to do is read a few on some bills that we know are no longer up for debate. If you want to answer any information on that, that's great. And then we'll move on from there. We may end early today. This one was on House Bill 1223 on informed consent and vaccine choice. This one asked philosophical and religious exemptions. Why not both? Does anyone want to talk on informed consent and vaccine choice? Representative Healy.
I'll talk about this. I voted no on this bill. There are already there's a really great exception that exists for folks who are in healthcare, who are in a position where they need to have a vaccine, that already excludes you from having to get a vaccination. And the policy is so great that this bill is unnecessary. And vaccinations are incredibly important. We have to ensure that we are taking care of our communities by getting vaccinated. This is a timely time to talk about this topic as we're watching the measles outbreak in Texas. And that is terrifying, especially for kids with children who can't vaccinate their kids yet because of the age. Luckily, my son is 15 months, so he has had his first round of vaccinations for measles, but it's a really scary time to have a child who can't be vaccinated. So that's a great just example as to why we need vaccinations.
All right. Anyone else want to talk on that topic? Okay, the next question is, if the Federal Department of Education is dismantled, what is the plan for serving children and youth who require special education programming? Has that been discussed at all? Representative Healy.
I don't think there's a plan for that. That's what Senator Larson just leaned over and said. I'm like, I don't think there's a plan for that. Isn't that terrifying? It's a very scary time for what we are seeing happen on a federal level, and quite honestly, it makes me lay awake at night. So I wish we had an answer for you. I don't have an answer for you.
Okay. Representative Jameson.
Right, the only answer is that more of that is coming. More is coming. It just is. And, and the realities are going to hit us in places that we thought were protected and or covered, and they're not. And it'll emphasize again the fact that we don't generate enough revenue in our state to take care of ourselves, and we're reliant on others. What are you going to do? And that's the question we're going to have to answer, or somebody's going to have to answer in the coming years. And so exactly soft places just like that. And there's going to be, I could come up with probably a list that aren't exciting for the future of our state, but they're coming. And, and if I could, I'd like to get back to, if we, regarding other topics that we haven't covered, there are a number of topics that we are going to be working on and covering. Property taxes in the prison. I'd really rather spend our remaining time talking about a couple of those.
Then let's do this. If there's a topic, I'll have each of you pick a topic that we can discuss. Then Representative Jameson, do you have one ready to go? Put you on the spot.
So thank you. Property taxes.
Can you reference a bill, or is it in the budget?
Okay, yeah, just property taxes.
Property taxes, okay.
So, all of us, I think, have been inundated with a request to reduce your property taxes. Help us, do something. It's too much. We're getting taxed out of our house. My parents, who are on a fixed income, for example, can't afford to stay in their home if the rates keep going. Same with your insurance rates. They're all going up. What are you going to do? How are you going to help me? And that question is real. And it again turns into, well, how much money are we raising from property taxes? What is it getting used for? Who collects it? The state does not collect any part of your sales or your property tax revenues. It goes to funding education, your local school district, or your municipality, or the county in which you live. We don't get any of that, but we regulate the rules that is those dollars are collected for. And so the change is coming that we have to find some way to reduce that. And that's taken local control away from those school boards, county commissions, and city councils. And somewhere the rubber is going to hit the road, and you guys are going to be saying, wait a minute, you're cutting funding for these programs for education in the county? The county's already underfunded, and the city. I don't want to pay any more taxes. So this whole conversation about sales tax going forward and funding our own state is right in the microcosm of our property taxes. So what are we to do?
There's your time.
I could go on, but I'm getting stopped.
Do either of you want to respond to that same topic?
Yeah, I don't think I need to respond to that. I agree that this is a huge issue. One solution that we saw was a resolution that would put together a task force this summer. And while I agree that that's probably necessary, what worries me about that is the way that certain individuals in our legislature talk about what that means. And what I heard was we need to cut spending in order to lower property taxes, because you can't just lower property taxes and expect our spending to stay the same. You need to either find a place where we fill that amount of lost revenue, or we have to cut spending. And the way that we quite often hear about it is that we are going to cut spending. And as you guys ask questions like, well, what do we do when the federal government stops funding? It's worrisome. So just keep that in mind as we potentially move forward with a task force. If this task force is approved by the legislature and it becomes one of our summer studies, we will be having meetings probably across the state. Very important to show up and to speak your mind, that you care about your property taxes, but you also care about fully funding what needs to be funded in our communities.
Senator Larson.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts to add to that. Money doesn't fall from the sky. And when people want to cut taxes all the time, but they want more for their money, it just doesn't add up at the end of the day. So when I look at some of the tax proposals that we've been talking about this year, it's hard not to think about California Prop 13, which I think, if I understand it correctly, I am not a tax expert, but that incentivized a lot more income tax, which is a dirty word in South Dakota that we don't say, and I'm not proposing it, I swear. But, you have to understand that this is all the rubber's gonna hit the road someday, and then money has to come from somewhere. When I was recently with a school administrator and I said, well, what if funding gets cut to the public schools in my district, in Sioux Falls? And she said to me, well, the first thing that's probably gonna go is the Lincoln High School band. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the residents of District 10 will freak out. So, I don't know what it's going to look like when the rubber hits the road, but it will. And just want you to think about that in the longer term. The other thing that I just want to add is that this situation isn't really helped by the fact that we have 2-year terms and 8-week sessions, because you get all these people who don't know the topics. They're coming in every 2 years, new, and then they have to learn it from scratch. And it's a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about making decisions. I have to stop now. Probably a good idea.
Sorry. Representative Healy, is there a topic you'd like to speak on? If not, I got a couple of them in. All right. There's the initiative, ballot initiatives. The question asks, can you please stop interfering with our citizens' right to initiate ballot measures? And someone wants to know about the ongoing attacks upon initiative and referendum. Who would like to speak on that topic? Representative Healy?
I'm tired too, you guys. We see all of these bills go through state affairs and they just fly right through. And it's just, it just really upsets me, because when we have a process for our constituents and citizens of South Dakota to speak up and to bring ideas to the ballot, it's important that we listen to them, because clearly, if we're bringing initiative measures and constitutional amendments to the ballot, it means that we as legislators, and I say we as a whole, not me, of course, just kidding, are not doing our job. And a prime example of that was mentioned earlier, and that's Medicaid expansion. For years, we were asked to bring some legislation. We couldn't pass it, and so the people brought the question forward, and we passed it. That's a great example. Unfortunately, we're going to continue to see this process be broken apart because of the ballot initiatives that are being brought forward, because our legislature doesn't like them. And so we will continue to see them try to suppress our voices because of it. And that's pretty unfortunate.
Anyone else want to speak on ballot initiatives? Representative Jameson.
Yeah, just because I haven't seen enough head shaking against my comments, I wanted to just add a little more. So I wanted to maybe just at least give you some behind-the-scenes perspective about these issues. And the intentions of them is that when we're changing the Constitution of the state, you shouldn't be putting statute-type legislation in the Constitution. It's just not the place for it. And so there's a pushback to kind of stop that. And then as well, if you are changing the Constitution, it should be at a higher threshold of voters and involvement from people around the state to get signatures and things done. So in the past, a lot of efforts to put things on the ballot were essentially driven in Sioux Falls, and all the signatures collected here. And there's an effort to say, well, let's make this more of a statewide collection of signatures. So it isn't just singled out Sioux Falls, and perhaps the political persuasion that we have here, it's intended to be more representative of the state. And so there's restrictions and requirements getting put on there. I think that's the intent, and to stop the practice of having repeat after a failed attempt, to have it come on the ballot and brought back to the voters. And so that's just some of the reining in, I think, the intentions are.
Okay. Senator Larson.
Yeah, and I mean, I would agree. I don't think we should be silencing people, and I don't think we should be making it more difficult. But I do agree that the initiated measure process, could be streamlined somehow to actually make it easier. We tend to bring very, very complicated subjects to voters, a lot of them at one time, and expect them to make an informed decision with very, very low voter turnout. So that's also not ideal. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm certainly not going to vote for making the thresholds any higher or any more difficult, but at the same time, I acknowledge that, once you get money and campaigns involved and things like that, it doesn't always turn out necessarily that people are voting in an informed way, depending on a lot of things. So it's complicated.
Okay, we're going to move on to House Bill 1039 on the National Board Certified Teachers. It says House Bill 1039 removes funding for National Board Certified Teachers. This program takes teachers up to 5 years to obtain, and the bill effectively ends the program as of July 25. What is your stance? Why are we removing incentives for teachers to improve student outcomes if, like it has been said, our schools need improving? So again, House Bill 1039. Representative Healy?
Yep. Yeah, we just voted on this a week or two ago. I voted no. I think the reason why we are removing it is honestly due to our budget. I'm bummed about that because I agree. I think it's incredibly important that we should have access to highly prepared and accomplished teachers. My parents were both teachers in the Sioux Falls School District growing up, so I'm sad that we had to cut off funding. It's a long process. It's a huge honor to receive this kind of certificate, and it looks really great on your resume if you have this. And unfortunately, because we live in Sioux Falls, and I know a few other areas that live close to the border of other states, we might lose teachers to this. We might lose teachers who might cross over the border, be able to get this certification funded by a different state, and then stay in that state. We're already a state with really low teacher income, and so this is just another chip away at their profession. And I know that it was probably due to budget cuts, and there was no huge intention of actually cutting away at teachers, but it is what it is, and unfortunately, they weren't a priority.
Okay. Anyone else? Here's one. Thank you to the legislators, it says, for voting in committee to bring accountability and transparency back to the state government. Do you know why subpoena power was removed in the first place, is the question. Does anybody have any history on that? Okay. Then we are at 11:20. We have 10 minutes left. What I'm going to do, if my timers can do this, is instead of the 90 seconds for closing arguments, we'll just kind of let's see, there's 3, doing my math here. We'll do 3 minutes for closing arguments, or closing statements, not arguments. You can argue if you want. And if you do want to cover a topic that hasn't been covered yet that you see coming through, feel free. You got 3 minutes instead of 90 seconds this time. And we'll start with Senator Larson.
Oh boy, I honestly don't have any huge closing statement. I think we've covered most of the things that, is there no remaining questions or anything?
Most of it was just stuff that had died, so.
Well, I guess I would just say then, thank you to all the people who voted for me, and thank you to all the people who pay attention to what is going on. It really, really helps when we get emails and phone calls from people about these issues. I'm not always able to respond, but when I get a heartfelt email from somebody, especially from District 10, and you say that you're from District 10, I'm reading them. I mean, some of the form emails and stuff I might kind of skim through, but I am reading them even if I'm not answering them, and I really, really appreciate that guidance. And it's changed my mind in certain cases when I get emails from constituents.
Thank you. Representative Healy.
Yeah, I don't know how much I have to add either. Just so appreciative of you guys all being out here. It's an honor to serve in the legislature. It's an honor to represent you. If you ever have any questions, always feel free to reach out. I think any one of us up here is willing to give you the time to answer any questions you might have or to discuss an issue that you might have. Some of the best legislation that I have ever brought, and not this year, but in past years, has been legislation that I've worked with individuals on in my district, or people who reached out to me with an issue and they want to solve a problem. Those are some of the best bills that I've ever brought. So if you ever have an idea, or if you ever see anything that just doesn't seem right, and there's some way that we can fix that in state statute, I'm always happy to discuss that with you and potentially bring something in the future. I'm going to touch on child care again, because that bill is going to be heard on Wednesday in the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. Please reach out to your senators. Let them know that this is an important bill. We need to fix the workforce. If we fix the workforce on 1132, and if we can get more people into the child care industry, then we are going to be able to increase the number of children that can be watched, and we can potentially drive down the costs of how much child care costs, because there are more kids in the system. Right now, we know that facilities specifically, they have the capacity. They have empty rooms that are available for kids and for teachers to be in those rooms, but of course they just don't have the workforce. So that's why this bill is very important. Again, reach out to your senators, and hopefully it passes through health and gets to the floor, and then reach out to all of the senators. This one's going to be voting yes. She represents me. But yeah, just so happy to be here. I tried to also answer all of my emails, and as I mentioned earlier, it gets kind of difficult when you see emails come through and it kind of gets buried because of all of the forum emails we get. But I will try to get through them this year. I still have 2 weeks to go, and I always include an apology because we are very busy people. I also just want to say, and I hope this is okay, but Representative Jameson's been really great. He's the only Republican here, and I just wanted to give him credit for showing up, because last week we didn't have that. So just wanted to give him credit
at the end. We can applaud at the end. Okay, Representative Jameson.
Wow, that was very nice. Thank you. I won't lie, I feel like I'm in a plaid suit and a black tie affair. I do have a decent working relationship with the Democrats. I just wish there was another House Democrat in the body that was here. Is there anybody? Any other? Oh, there is one up front here. Representative Whitman is a spark of energy. She's on our local government committee, and she's passionate about the issue she carries. So is Aaron here, and I've known Aaron longer, but still, I am the only Republican here, and there are challenges up here. There are challenges that we have coming to a body like this, because we feel like we're put on the carpet a little bit, called to the carpet. There's a lot of issues that Republicans feel strong about that aren't represented in this room. And so when we come, there's some challenges, but I'm hoping to bridge that a little. And maybe more Republicans should come and ask those kinds of questions, and that's just how it is. So I still have some friends out here. I can see them. And there's still some that are shaking their head at me that I'm not their friend. So that's pleasant. Great. That's the environment you want to foster, is that kind of feeling. So continue that if you'd like, sir. But you're not going to get Republicans to show with that kind of attitude. And Republicans have the supermajority in the House and the Senate. You need them. You want them. If you can't build a bridge with them, you are going to be left on the side. Do something to help the process. I just have to talk about property tax in the prisons because they're coming. Changes are coming to those programs, and the prison is probably the biggest. Frankly, it's the most complicated item we've ever had to address in our state. We've kicked the can down the road not doing it even before we were a state. The prison we have today was built before statehood. We do not want to spend money on a prison. It's not exciting at all. It's not like our event center at all. There's just no good that comes from it, in effect, because it's just a place to lock people up. But through the governor's approach to resetting this whole idea, we are going to focus on some great positive things about preventing people to going to prison. And we started that with the bill the other day. But also about, are we spending the right amount of money? And where are we building it? Is that the right place? Everything is starting over. I hope you guys get engaged in that process, because it is the biggest that we'll ever have to do. So I guess if I could leave it at that, when those meetings come, please attend and participate in the discussion.
Well, thank you. And thank you again today for our sponsors, AARP South Dakota, Change Agents of South Dakota, JARE Events, Sioux Falls Education Association, the Sioux Falls Trades and Labor Assembly, South Dakota Federation of Labor, and Southeast Technical College. In addition, we'd like to thank Southeast Technical for their hospitality here. JARE Events for live streaming on the Sioux Falls League of Women Voters Facebook page and our YouTube channel, and Interpreter Services for providing our interpreters and our great volunteers with the League of Women Voters as well. Again, thank you to the legislators who participated today. And finally, we thank you, the audience, for giving voice to issues and concerns. Let's give our elected officials a round of applause. Wonderful. Have a great day, and thank you for coming. If people could, am I still on? If people could take trash with them, if you have some trash around you, please take it out, and there's garbage can out in the entryway. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I appreciate your